Hey, we're live. Uh, cool. Yes, just checking something here. Cool. Hi everyone. This is episode 22 of the Security Back podcast. Once again, we're live for another week, and today I'm happy to have together with me Caitlin. Hi, Caitlin. How are you?
I'm good. How are you?
I'm great. I'm great. And once again, thank you for accepting to join me for this episode. Um, just a quick introduction. If this is the first time you're watching this, this is just a little project of mine where I invite cool people like Caitlin to speak about some of the last news from the security realm. I invite a lot of different guests because I really think the value is in the conversation with people with different background, skills, knowledge, and I really think that I personally learn a lot in the process, and hopefully you that are watching or listening to this will learn something as well. Today, as I said, there's Kathleen. Kathleen, would you mind just introduce you briefly?
My name is Caitlin. I've been in cybersecurity for about 10 years now. Started out in cybersecurity consulting, but originally did aerospace engineering before I got into cyber. So I had no experience getting in. I learned everything on the job in consulting. I was terrible at coding, so that is not my area of expertise or strength. I kind of know what's going on, but I'm not good at it. And I am a social media influencer and educator on all about cybersecurity. And I just am trying to get as many people into the career field as possible, as well as educate everyone on how to be safe online, since we were never taught how to do it when we were younger. So I'm happy to be here and kind of walk through these, you know, main key headlines, some of which are really interesting, and honestly would love to get your take on them. Again, I'm not very technical, so I understand what's going on, but would love to hear how you think it went down or how it happened. So it's always fun to do.
Yeah, that's cool. That's great. And by the way, I really like your mission, right? The fact that unfortunately, so many people in the industry are doing like gatekeeping, right? And maybe discouraging people to start a career in this industry because it's difficult. It requires a lot of skills. I think personally that yeah, that's for sure, right? It's a challenging industry, but definitely anyone can at least try to join if they are eager to learn. Definitely, you can learn on the job. You definitely have just to be willing to do it, right? To learn and to try stuff and just find maybe just the best career path for you because there are so many different paths in there. So definitely thank you for the work you're doing. And by the way, the fact that you're not technically it's perfect. I'm inviting on purpose people that are definitely um, uh, you know have different perspectives, have different backgrounds than me, because I want to see different point of views. Because I think the value is exactly in how you look at this with your own knowledge skills that I know it's going to be a lot and it's going to just be different than mine, right? I think that's the best thing.
Yeah.
So here's the thing. I'm gonna share my screen with the first of the news. I'm gonna introduce it very quickly and see what are the first thoughts that comes to our minds. So here we go. Yes, cool. So anyone should be able to see my screen. And by the way, I'm going to take this, article links and put it in the description of the YouTube video because, even if you're watching this live, the recording will be there after it, and in the description there will be, of course, catering contacts, but also, the links to this article, so you can do your own research. You can do your own reading, and I really think that actually you should read, and make your own opinions, and maybe let us know in a comment what you think about this. So the first this first article here talks about something that, for many people in the industry, maybe it's really, clear, and it's not really a surprise, right? But still, I think this is worth some discussion about it. We're talking about Google and its browser that most people are nowadays are using, that is Google Chrome, and it's incognito mode, right? So this is basically the mode that you can enable from your browser to go, let's say, private while you're browsing internet, right? The thing is, and this is what it's inside the news, that last month Google settled a lawsuit, right, for 5 billions, where they allegedly spied on people using the incognito mode, which is a little counterintuitive if you think about it. And the thing about it is that basically Google was saying, okay, maybe you are just a little, people in general, a little overestimating what incognito mode does and what to expect from it. Still, apparently a lot of people think that you are completely private when you enable such mode. And by the way, it's not only Chrome, a lot of other browsers, I think maybe all of them actually give you the same possibility. But the thing is that it depends. It's gonna maybe hide some of the things, but not all of the things. And the outcome of this lawsuit is that Google is now releasing a new statement when you open the Google Chrome incognito mode, saying that not only third parties can still, let's say, listen or watch into your connections into your browsing, but also Google itself, because it was not specified before, and now it is, just to make it clear, so that basically no one can complain about it. Now, well, for sure, I want to talk a little bit about the incognito mode itself, right? Most of the people aren't really aware of what it does or why they should use it, and they just, and that's human. You just do not read everything that is in front of you, even if it's specified in the page in front of you when you open it, that is only going to hide things on your own local computer, right? It's not going to save your history. It's not going to save maybe some of the cookies and so on and so forth. Still, your connection can definitely be recorded by so many third parties out there, not locally, but through the internet, let's say, right? And I don't know if this is just my like my perception, or still this is something that most of the people are not really um, thinking about. What do you think?
Yeah, I mean, I don't, I think a lot of people just don't understand what it means. When they hear incognito, they think it's like secretive. And I think, like you said, it's not just the Google browser. There's other browsers that I think almost every other browser also has a similar feature. So it's not just Google that's getting, having the issue. It's every browser. And so I think what people need to realize, and I've actually recorded a few videos about this, like what incognito mode actually does, because it doesn't, like, you kind of hit the nail on the head. Like, yeah, it doesn't really save your it's like not saved in your personal browsing history, and it's just like, your cookies aren't going to be collected, and site data is not going to be collected, or the information if you put on forms is not being collected. But when it comes to like anyone else, your internet service provider can still see where you go usually. If you're working on an employee laptop, like they can probably see where you're going. So it just depends on the mechanism of where the data is collected. Incognito mode's more for like your computer. Like it's like, oh, I'm not going to share or store this information. But outside of your computer, it's really not incognito. It's your whatever other third party you're using. Usually, it's still being shared, and sometimes even your IP address is still being shared. So, um, yeah, it's an interesting concept. I think the world. This goes back to just cybersecurity in general of education and understanding. Like people don't know what it is, and they're not going to, continue to ask questions about it because, in their opinion, incognito means incognito. It means that you aren't being seen, and so why would they ask what? Why would they question that when they don't even understand how it works? Like you don't know what you don't know. So I think it's, you know, I keep saying that it's companies' responsibilities if they're collecting certain data and profiting off certain data that they should be educating the users, which is and it's an interesting concept. But if you think about it, like they're literally taking data from you, they're most likely selling it, and and they're making money off of it. So they should have the responsibility, in my opinion, to educate the users on what they're actually doing about it, and like be more upfront, like not just have it deep down in a privacy policy. Like Google's privacy policy is absurd. You can't really understand what's going on. So yeah, I mean, I don't blame the users because honestly, if I weren't in cyber, I would assume the same thing. And also just realize, like, again, it's not just a Google thing. I know that Google obviously got sued for 5 million. I think it was million or is it billion? I don't know. A lot of money. But yeah, it's kind of false advertising for people that don't know what cybersecurity is.
You definitely took at least a couple of different topics that are very interesting. First of all, it's a lot about awareness, right? The fact that I'm really convinced that if you're using a tool, this tool can be a computer, can be the internet or whatever, you have to be at least aware of what are the consequences of you using that kind of tool, right? And this is not, we're not talking about big companies cybersecurity, but also you in your own home using your private device to do daily browsing. This is everyone's cybersecurity, is the individual cybersecurity. Not only maybe you're in the employee, right, of a big company, so it also how you use those tools can also impact your own company. But the fact is that for your own privacy, for your own safety, you should be just a little aware of how things work. I'm not like pretending that you have to be an expert, right, in how networks work, or how a browser work and everything. But the point is that if you want to use it and you want to use it well, without any consequences for what you're doing specifically, you have to be aware. And I'm also agreeing with the fact that it's a lot of using bad words. The fact that we are calling it incognito mode, just let us think that this is completely hiding everything you're doing, but the fact is it's not, right? And just to make this clear, I like to explain as much as I could what we mentioned in this podcast. If it's not clear to everyone which is watching this or listen to this, the point is that while your browser usually collects a lot of data while you're browsing, right? It's saving your history so you can go back to your previous sites that you visited before whenever you want, and any other people using the same computer technically can do that. Then you're not saving those using incognito mode. You're saving cookies for most of the time you visit a website, so you can save your choices or a lot of your configuration in using that specific tool. And when you're using incognito mode, you're not doing that. But the fact that as specified in the lawsuit for Google, Google is doing money, in fact recording data, right, tracking data and processing that and selling the outcome of that processing. They are still doing it outside of your computer, right? uh, Also when you're using incognito mode, and that's not only Google in this case, but also, as you mentioned, your internet provider, the website you are visiting. If you are going to a social media, that social media is still recording whatever you do, on their social media. Or if you're using, I don't know, a third party service like a VPN or anything, there are so many different actors involved that you have to be aware of. So anything that is outside, let's say, your computer, can still collect a lot of information, and most of the information are actually there. um, Now, I could also mention that still something, on your local computer could technically be recovered, but here we're moving to maybe something like digital forensics. I would say, like, okay, if tomorrow for any reason the police is going to take your device, even if you use the incognito mode for some um, of your private browsing, technically some activity can still be recovered with a lot of if and conditions. But that's I think a little too technical for now. But once again, it's just to give some hints, and if you are curious, if you're interested, do your own research, and just try to understand more every day. So yeah, I think this was pretty much it. Do you have anything else in your mind about this topic right here, Caitlin?
Yeah, I mean, I think in summary, like, I think people need to realize incognito mode's really like for you locally. It's not incognito for everyone else, like that you're visiting. So, like, for example, if you're, buying a present from a website and you don't want your, family member that shares the computer to know that you went to that website, then use incognito mode. But then there's that stipulation that if you're buying a family member something on Amazon and then you sign into Amazon through incognito, or if you sign into any Facebook, whatever that is, you're no longer incognito. Like that, there's no difference. So, like, once you sign into an account, it's gonna know who you are. So incognito is really like for local things on your device that you just don't want people. If you're sharing a device with someone, you don't want people to know, but it doesn't really do anything outside of that.
Yeah, maybe one last thing that we should definitely mention is that especially when we talk about company-owned devices, right? If you are using the device that your company granted to you, definitely there are a lot of uh, ways or tools that your company is using for sure, not to track you in the first place, but to defend you and your device from cybersecurity risks, and to ensure that everything is working properly with the internal resources and everything. So definitely the fact that you use incognito mode doesn't even um, let's say cover the eyes of your own company, right? Because that's your own company device. There are going to be a list of different software that are installed in the computer itself, that maybe is tracking your own activity in other ways, right? Maybe not inside your own browser, but with other softwares tracking the connections and everything. Maybe you are going through, once again, the company VPN, and that's another story once again. So just yeah, we need to have this kind of separation between what is happening locally in our device, and whoever is using the same device can see or cannot see, and whoever else that is able to have a look into my connection and what they can see. But yeah, I really think that's pretty much it. So very quickly, before we jump into the next news that has been actually pretty big in the news on the last week, just a little reminder. This is just a little project, and if you're watching this, if you are maybe listening this in on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, or whatever um, podcast platform you prefer, consider subscribing to the YouTube channel, but also in on all the other social, to just to be notified whenever a new episode comes out, usually every week. And this is very helpful, just to let me know that you are appreciating this, that you like this, and I should do more, and I can invite new guests, as Caitlin this time. So thank you for that. And now we jump into to the next news. So, as I said, this was pretty big. We're talking about Microsoft and the fact that, unfortunately, once again, they got breached. They declared themselves that they identified a data breach that was caused by some Russian actors. They did some of the profiling here, and the attribution. They attributed this to what they call Midnight Blizzard, a specific, Russian-based group, and they add a specific, post where they describe what happened and what they were able to identify. Now we don't really have too many details on this, and I've seen a lot of people just doing some, guessing and hypotheses on what's behind this. And I really want to stress on the fact that we don't know the details, and unfortunately, probably we will never know, like in many other data breaches statements that we can see on a daily basis. But there's still a lot that we can, I think, learn about this. So the thing that Microsoft said about it is that they found the actor was in their environment at least from November 2023. That's at least a couple of months where the attackers were pretty much free to play in their environment. And we know that Microsoft definitely has a very big environment and also is connected to a lot of their customers. So this is basically every time a company like Microsoft is breached, it means a lot of consequences, or potential consequences, at least for their customers and partners and so on and so forth. And the fact that they stayed for so long let us think a lot. And the other thing they specified is that the way they caught in, so the initial access, we say, the way the actors actually got a first foothold in their environment was using a password spraying attack. So what was this? I think some people sometime confuse this with a brute force attack. There's a little difference in this. So usually in a brute force attack, you use a lot of guessing of different passwords, a lot of combination of characters to try to guess the password of a specific user, right? So you have a single user and you specify 1,000 or 10,000 or even more attempts to find the right password so you can get in. In the password spraying attack, you are actually doing kind of the opposite, where you get a specific password that someone used it, maybe because it's a very straightforward password. I know password 123 or admin or whatever, or maybe they from another data breach they got a real password and then they are trying to find out other platforms where the same user used it. And so they are basically running multiple, many different attempts with multiple accounts and the same password, right? So there's this little difference in here. And with this, they got into what they call a non-production test tenant, whatever that means. I think that's very, very, um, not very specific, at least. And the thing is that this non-production test tenant account then enable the attackers to eventually collect and maybe exfiltrate all the information from their leadership team, their cybersecurity team, their legal team, and so on and so forth. So now, uh, again, I think the first thing that we probably can take from this news here is that no matter how big is your company, no matter how advanced could be your security posture, because definitely Microsoft is going to be definitely advanced, with all of their team. They're going to have a big team. They're going to have a lot of technology in place. Still, they get breached, right? So I don't know if do you think this is clear nowadays that any company out there, no matter how big or how little they are, can still be facing a cyber attack? Do you think that's a thing?
Oh yeah, I mean, I think you're only as strong as your weakest link, and I say this on every podcast. And your weakest link are the people. So it doesn't matter what technology you use. It's you're always honestly your weakest link is your people. And so, like you said, this was, senior exec emails were accessed. And to be honest, most large companies have a standard email, like, what's it called? Like a standard way of creating emails for their users. So it's usually like first and last name at Microsoft.com, or like first name, last initial, or first initial, last name.
Yeah, they
And
have a naming convention, right?
yeah, that's like a public thing. Like you can easily find out what it is. And then if you just run a scan with like what they did with this password spraying with all of the like standard easy passwords, I guarantee you're going to get into one. Like it's not hard to do. And I could do that and I don't even know like technical skills. It's really interesting. Obviously, you'd hope that they have multi-factor authentication so that if they do get one password, then they're not getting into everything and they're still not able to get in overall. But, it, yeah, it just people really don't realize that it's not hard to like breach an organization if you have like weak security protocols and weak security awareness in that organization. And you'd think that like, oh, it's Microsoft, like everyone's like really techie. It's like every type of person works at these large companies. It's not like everyone is in, like, just because you work in tech doesn't mean you know how to do tech. Like there's every type of person that works there. So I think it's just having better communication and awareness around security protocols and having people start understanding like all the different ways that they can be, sounds bad, but like more like exploited. Especially senior execs. I think this happens a lot, whether that's spear phishing, which is like when hackers specifically fish for, or like whaling specifically fish for like larger employees of the company that have more access. And or even this, I mean, this sounds really bad, but like, the older generation sometimes has a hard time remembering passwords, so they use easy passwords and they don't really think anything of it. And um, I think it's just letting them know how important it is, to have stronger passwords and to start, even if that's like help. Oh, I think also a lot of times they just don't know how to do it, or they don't think it's going to happen to them. And it's clearly communicating, and articulating how important it is and why it's important and what happens if it like if they don't do it.
Absolutely. I will probably just add a thing to what you said, and the thing is that actually the bigger is the company, and usually more are the challenges that you are facing, just because you have so many people in there. You said that people is unfortunately most of the time your weakest link, right? And if you have, I don't know how many thousands of people are working for Microsoft, that's a lot of people that can all be exploited. And at the same time, even if we exclude the human link, you also have a lot of technology in there that is part of your attack surface, right? So the more you have, or of whatever, of applications, technology, employees, or whatever, all of those can be individual assets that can be targeted and exploited by attackers, right? So that's also in order to understand that, okay, once again, it's Microsoft, or it's, I don't know, whatever, Apple or Amazon, the even if you're really advanced, even if you are very techy, if you have the smartest people in there um, trying to protect your company, the thing is that no one is really 100% secure. And the challenges are really increasing the more the company grows. And here I think it's actually this is the case because they are talking about this non-production test account. The thing is that most probably, we are guessing here, we're doing a hypothesis, they had this user which was forgot some way, and it you know ho- we can guess that it didn't have really any multi-factor authentication enabled if password spray attack was enough to breach it. Just because even if you find the password for a specific account and you have MFA, you have multi-factor authentication, that's usually enough to prevent an access from someone which is not really the rightful user, right? So we can guess in this specific case there was no multi-factor authentication, and that nowadays, at least most of the people in the industry think it's a big, let's say failure, right? I don't personally think it's a failure, because once again, anyone can face something like this. But still, if this was the case, this was a big issue, because once again, password spreading is really like a very basic attack. It's not really advanced, and this is something that we mentioned so many times during this podcast. Um, we in the industry like to talk about the most advanced kind of attacks, the most techy ones, the more sophisticated ones. But the reality is that most of the time it's the really basic things. Most of the time it's phishing. Most of the time it's just finding the password written somewhere, and this is kind of one of those cases right there, right? It's really possible they just picked a password from a previous data breach, and they tried to reuse it so many times until they really found the right account. The only other thing I wanted to mention is that it's really clear that that was the initial access, right? So the first foothold that the attacker got into the environment. But then, in order to be able to collect data from all of those different teams Microsoft is mentioning, it's clear that the attacker moved laterally in their environment, right? They possibly did a lot of movements in those 2 months, and they got access to other devices, other resources, maybe also other internal accounts. And this is something they don't specify, right? But I think it's okay. That's not a technical statement of all the incident with all of the individual steps they identified. But it's really clear this was not the only step the attacker did, right? And that's that also says a lot on separating different environments internally to the company, right? Maybe you had that test tenant account, but how do they move to your employees mailboxes, and they got into the legal department, and they got into the cybersecurity department, right? It seems that that was not the only vulnerability they exploited, if it makes sense, right?
Yeah.
um,
Yeah, I think a lot of people don't realize, like, in my personal opinion, people are your weakest link. That's how every hacker gets their foot in the door. And then it's continued awareness and stuff, and tools and technology that you use to detect when people are in there. And
right.
hackers are like, they move laterally, like you said. They're trying to open doors, they're trying to open windows, they're trying to just get in other ways to continue to get more and more elevated access, so they can get more exclusive, kind of like IP data. And so it's a game to them. Like, usually a long game. Um, but again, people are like the weakest link when it comes to letting hackers in the door. And then it comes into your tools and how you're monitoring and detecting what's going on in your network to, like, actually track and see what's going on. So I think, yeah, you're right when you say, like, it doesn't really say a lot in this article, but they obviously moved somewhere. It doesn't really even say, like, all of the stuff that I think they're being pretty um, broad about what was accessed.
Yeah.
Um, and I don't know if it's because they don't know what's accessed yet, or if it's not a big deal. But yeah, I would assume that it's probably a bigger deal than they're letting it out to be.
I mean, that's actually an interesting topic, and yeah, we also already discussed on other episodes. But the thing is that, of course, the public, statement about an incident that any company pretty much does nowadays, because of different regulations that actually force you to, right? Um, it doesn't really let's say, requires you to declare all the details. You have to declare basically, or most of the time, and maybe you know more about this, but that you faced a kind of breach when this happened, and how many different actors this is affecting. you, your partners, your employees, maybe your own customers, and what type of data maybe it was involved. It was, kind of sensitive data, internal company data, or whatever. And we will, we as not really involved in the incident, we'll probably never know all of the details, because there's something that you take internally that maybe you should use to have what we call, the lesson learned, to learn from your own incident, and make it, make something better for the next time you face the same kind of attack. But I don't really expect, and this is a personal opinion, I don't really expect Microsoft or any other company to really mention everything that this is happening. And I see this is actually bothering some of the people in the industry that are really expecting Microsoft to give out all of the details. But I don't know if that's something that you really want to do. You don't really want to give out too many information about what happened, because someone else can reuse the same tactics, and maybe you're not ready, to face the same attack yet. Again, this is maybe not the case of Microsoft. It could be for someone else. You're not really. I don't think you really have to do that. As long as you communicate to the right people that are affected by this. What do you think? You agree with me, or do you have a different opinion?
I think there's a way that you can still share a little bit more information about what happened. Um, I think there's two avenues that you should share. One to the public, and that can be a little bit more broad, but at least explain. I mean, this article didn't go into that much detail about what the heck happened and what that means for like a normal user reading this article. And then the second way of sharing is, I think they do this. There's a lot of groups already that share insights with each other, whether they're competitors or not. I know there's a lot of government groups that share, like if there's a breach like this, and they say, hey, this is how they got in more specifically, so other companies won't have the same issue. Um, so I mean, there's a lot going on behind the scenes, but when it comes to like media and announcing it, I think companies need to do a better job of explaining what that means to like the normal human reading the article, because
Yeah.
if you're not in tech, you don't understand, I would say, a majority of what's going on. And then it just gives you more worry and doubt in the company. Whereas if the company is actually explaining, like, this is what happens, I mean, they did say like they're going to be focused more on, I think, like training and stuff like that in the
Yeah.
future. But like, what does that mean for me as a Microsoft user? And I think a lot of companies don't explain what that looks like. Because, yeah, I just don't think they know how to announce it like that.
Yeah, you're right, because you probably need to do a list of different kind of communication depending on who's the target of that communication, right? Maybe, and we don't know yet. This is very recent, and maybe we will have more public posts from Microsoft with a very detailed, very technical description of what happened step by step, so that it can be also um, educational in some ways, right, for other companies that are facing similar attacks. And maybe they are going to do other communications, like less public, directly to their not only employees. Maybe if any affected partner is going to be involved, they could share maybe more details. But in the sense of, okay, just declaring we faced a breach, this was affected in terms of kind of data, I think that this is definitely okay. Now there's a lot of speculation. Now we are also using this in order to have a conversation, but I will not really, let's say, complain at this stage because Microsoft didn't share enough. Again, personal opinion, but anyone can definitely make your own opinion. I really encourage you to do it. um cool. That said, maybe we can jump on the last news for today, unfortunately. But this is actually a very, very interesting one, especially for us specifically, because this is definitely into that context. It's really a very big topic, let's say. Okay, So we're talking once again about AI because it's just so cool nowadays, but also about misinformation in the context of elections. So in the past, U.S. had some issues, let's say, some big deals regarding elections and how some actors were allegedly able to manipulate some of the um, communications by the different people involved, and how the people are going to choose who to elect, right? And this is now a very big topic in there, as it, I think it should be in any other country. And the news is talking about a post from OpenAI, which is the company behind ChatGPT, probably the most renowned and most famous LLM, or just AI chatbot out there. They made a statement where they are taking into consideration the fact that their technology could also be misused, could be exploited in order to once again manipulate the information and do some misinformation, creating statements from people involved in the elections, or creating images, possibly even creating what we call fake um, oops, just forgetting the term here, but deep fakes, right? Where you fake someone saying something that they're not really saying, and they are implementing a list of different measures to try to prevent this, right? So before actually going into the specific details of what they're doing, just the fact that they're doing this, it's pretty cool. Also because I don't think anyone was really talking about this topic yet, or at least I didn't read anything about it, like misinformation and regarding the elections, and the usage of ChatGPT and similar. But the first thing that comes to my mind when I was reading, this was, okay, this is OpenAI, but what about all of the others, companies delivering the same kind of services, or um, using the same kind of technologies? Okay. Once again, I really think the people and everyone, not only us in the industry, because everyone is going to vote, right? Uh, we have to be aware that there are a lot of other, maybe smaller, little open AIs out there with a lot of other little chat GPTs versions that they can do the same, and maybe they're not really going to implement any measure to prevent this stuff, right? This is a very big topic, but once again, what are your first thoughts about it?
Yeah, so I have two thoughts. One, like you said, there's a million other, AI softwares that can do this. My concern goes back to like what happened with like COVID and all the other things about what's actually labeled as quote unquote misinformation,
Right.
because to be honest, every news article is skewed. There's not one person that, and it's a individual thing. It's not like we all have our own opinion, and it's really hard to, be part of, like, be a journalist and be unbiased at any point in time. So every type of news article, whatever, in my opinion, is pretty much skewed one way. And so, who's the one deciding what's right and what's wrong? Obviously deep fakes and stuff, that's going to be wrong. Like we can't allow that. And I'm intrigued to know how, since OpenAI is the leading company, how are they helping other AI companies maintain and manage all of this information and make sure that it's not just them pulling the weight of everyone else? And then the other thing is, how are they doing this unbiasedly? Because to be honest, like I think COVID was handled pretty crazily. I mean, you can see all the stuff that happened with like Twitter and like taking doctors off of Twitter or whatever it was. Like whoever side you're on, it was just a really weird, skewed different ways of looking at it. And so, how are we going to make sure that whatever is actually available is unbiased and like coming, specifically I think it's pretty hard, honestly, to do. And I don't think there's a right or wrong answer. So I'm intrigued as to, yeah, how they're gonna like make this not biased.
Yeah, it's definitely probably one of the most tricky topics out there, right? And social media are still trying to find, let's say, a solution, but just a way to handle this, and are already facing this from many years now. Now it's the time that also um, AI players are starting facing this. But I think you mentioned something very very interesting in there, which I didn't think about. Is the thing that OpenAI as the, let's say, I think we can say it's the leader in this industry, right? At least at the moment. Should they be somewhat responsible to guide other players as well, other providers as well? Should they make some open guidelines on how to implement some security measure to try to contrast this kind of a problem? uh, like, I don't know, it could be a very of course nice idea to do like a list of uh, not only what we did, but also what other companies could do, and maybe suggesting some ways to implement it, right? I understand there's a lot of, why should I suggest to my own competitors how to do stuff? But this is actually for, um, uh, you know, for the sake of the country, for the sake of all of the people, not only customers, but all of the people are in there will be definitely impacted by this. So it could be a very very interesting idea. I'm not sure if this is something that could ever come to the to the executives mind. um I don't know. Do you think that could be something that could happen?
I mean, I don't know if it's necessarily their responsibility. I think it would have to be like a top-down approach from the government. I
Right.
think it's their responsibility a little bit in the sense that they're the ones leading this, industry. And so it's, in my opinion, it's their responsibility to kind of like set the framework and the outline for how other companies can do what they're doing. But I don't think it's their responsibility to be chasing after all these smaller companies. I think it's the responsibility of the government to start like forcing these smaller companies to abide by these frameworks and standards, and or the government to create their own standards, maybe partnering with OpenAI so they can have a general understanding of how it works in the first place. But I mean, I just think, yeah, it's definitely not their responsibility to help all the other competitors. I think it'd be really responsible of them to work with the government to start forcing things down and like creating frameworks that everyone should be abiding by. But yeah, that's that's my opinion on it.
No, no, I kind of agree, and still, I think it could still be a good idea, even as the leader, in the industry, because it still says a lot when it's you that you are providing guidelines on how to do stuff, right? And you are teaching the other companies, and you are doing maybe it publicly. I think it's just reinforce your position some way. Like it happens in the cybersecurity industry, right? There are the very big vendors and big players in there that definitely do a lot of free blog posts and free educational stuff on their own website, just to demonstrate what are their own skills, their own capabilities, even if technically you can go read that blog post and teach yourself something, and maybe you're working for other companies. You're still definitely making um, a certain perception of that company, like, okay, they wrote this, so they know something about it, right? So yeah, I just think it could be definitely a good idea. Not sure if they ever will ever do something about it. But now, just to go a little more in the specifics of what they are going to do, some of the measures they specify they're going to make are something like, okay, just trying to prevent people on creating their own chatbots from their technology for any purpose related to the elections and voting. So I'm guessing here they're going to put in place a list of filters based on specific keywords, like anything mentioning vote, anything mentioning elections, and they will have for sure their very big list of sensitive keywords in this case will probably be blocked and prevented. And this is well, they were doing this already for a lot of other topics, right? Like they were, of course, preventing ChatGPT to help you with creating any weapon or doing anything really harmful on a lot of different levels and topics. And it was demonstrated a lot of multiple times that there are ways to uh, just you know don't be blocked by those filters, right? So they found a lot of workarounds and they're still finding them. So I really hope that at this point they were able to make some better filters compared to the past. But if there are some, very big groups or big actors out there that are really motivated to use their technology, they will probably find something to exploit this. Do you think this is going to be the case, or they will just still prefer to use any other provider out there which is not implementing any measure at all? Do you think that there's any difference?
Um, I don't think there's that much of a difference. I think they're gonna, if they want to do it, they'll find a way.
Right.
Um, it's sad because I really hate following the news because I can't do anything about it. All I can do is educate the public on what's going on, in like the most unbiased way possible. But if someone wants to do it, I don't think there's going to be an issue doing it. Unfortunately, especially even people like with not in the U.S. Like I think there's outside countries that would like to skew our voting as well and kind of trick people into whatever's going on. So I think it's a way to manipulate the U.S. government in one way, shape, or form, which is kind of a scary thing. But as long as we start having some type of regulations, like I think this is a really great article that shows that we're like aware and mindful. But then it's like how is this actually being implemented? And I know it kind of goes through all of it, but I guess for me, it's actions speak louder than words. So let's see how it's being done. And honestly, it's a really really hard thing. I'm definitely not um, saying that it's like easy and they're not like able to do it. Like this is uncharted territory that no one actually knows what to do with. And so um, yeah, I'm just intrigued to see how these brilliant minds figure it out.
Yeah, it's still a very good thing that even before the election is happening, they are ready. They are really addressing this kind of issue. At least they are trying, and I'm sure that as soon as the first exploits or first workarounds will be found and will be declared, they will improve their security measures, and hopefully it will not be a big issue, at least regarding OpenAI specifically. Now, you mentioned that you cannot, let's say, quote unquote, do a lot unless just working on the awareness. But I still think that's the key here, right? Because vendors can do a lot in here. They can try to provide some information around what is being shared, what is being generated in this case, but a lot it's still on the individual people. Once again, using the internet and reading what's out there and interpreting those information, right? So I think that's actually the most important effort we can all do, right? Because we are in the industry, and I think we have some responsibility being in the industry to maybe just start with the very small things, like just teach your relatives or your friends, or just inform them of these cases. And I think this also relates to the other um, measure that OpenAI took, right? The fact that they are already putting a watermark in the images that are being generated with their AI. So what does it mean? Basically, whenever you go in there and just tell ChatGPT, oh, create an image with this guy saying something that he usually does not do, it will put a statement there saying, this is generated by ChatGPT. So beware, this is not real. This is something that it was created on purpose. So that's already something, in my opinion. But if people don't put the effort on reading those watermarks, it doesn't really make a difference, right? So I think this is just half of the global efforts that we have to do as a community. There's that watermark in there, and I really think I should say to everyone I know that there's that watermark. Read it and think about what does it mean when you see an image. And you should always, from now on at least, check whether there's that watermark in there. And if there's not, maybe it was just generated by another AI, from not from OpenAI. Does it make sense at all?
Yeah, no, I mean, I think OpenAI is kind of leading the way for AI right now on some of the standards and stuff, and regarding copywriting and images and all that stuff. And so I just think it's time for the government to start, which I don't think we live in that type of government, unfortunately, but to start regulating a little bit more on OpenAI a little bit, not OpenAI, but on AI in general.
Yeah, yeah, definitely. Cool. So yeah, this is definitely an interesting topic, and I hope that there will be more news and discussion about this in the near future. It's definitely something that I want to learn a little more, and hopefully also you watching or listening to this will be willing to listen to us discussing about it. Now, I think, Caitlin, this is pretty much what we had in our minds for tonight. Well, night for me, but maybe I think it's afternoon for you.
Yeah.
Um, and yeah, I thank you so much for being in here. It was really insightful to have this conversation. And as I said already, multiple times here, I'm really glad that I have the chance to talk, with people that really have different opinions, different point of views, just a different skill set. Because okay, maybe I could be a technical person, and I could have some more skill on some specific aspects, but definitely I lack a lot regarding regulation or governance of data, and so on and so forth. That I really think you and a lot of people in your own let's say in part of the industry will be a lot more knowledgeable than what I am. So thank you for that. Hopefully, everyone is enjoying this. And once again, just a reminder: this is going to be recorded. This is going to be available on YouTube after this. I'm going to take the audio and post this on Spotify, Apple Podcast, and similar platforms. So consider following, subscribing, and whatever you have in front of you, depending on the different social media. And thank you for now. See you on the next episode. Thank you, Caitlin.
Yeah, of course. Thanks for having me.
Sure. Bye, everyone.